Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Zach Jackson. Zach is running for town council of Front Royal. You're on the ballot, I see. Zach has also been appointed. You're an appointee that you're currently serving. And so most of the first question I ask everyone that's in this Meet the Candidates series is, why in the world do you want to do this?
Well, that's a good question, Mike. I think it comes down to the fact that I was born and raised here. Mm-hmm. So having a sense of where the town's been, I kind of understand where it needs to go. Yeah. And being a lifelong member, I want to give back to the town that's given a lot to me. Yeah. The relationships I have with people around here, they were forever. Yeah. It's a good place to live, work, and play, honestly.
Yeah. It is a great place. So, I think when people get to a certain age, they kind of, well, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I need to be a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's pretty much what happened. I went to Bridgewater College after my transferred back and then went to Bridgewater College. Originally, I went to Penn State my freshman year. Kind of got involved, not necessarily with politics, but just kind of taking an interest to policy, how it influenced things. And then when I originally went to Bridgewater, I wanted to study public policy to be a lobbyist.
Right.
And I know that's a terrible term right now, right? But
you call that government relations.
Correct, right? But right. But what I found out was no one should have that much control over policy that doesn't get affected by it on a daily basis. I'm a firm believer that the government, works for the people. We should have a say. We should have an influence. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't matter about how much money's in your pocket.
Right.
So that kind of steered me towards policy analytics and understanding, why policy affected things, the unintended consequences of things. We can know policy's perfect.
Right.
So learning about that and applying it in some of those classes and doing the research methods part of it and actually being hands-on with data, from a political aspect, it kind of geared me towards wanting to run for office in Front Royal because I'm a cost-effective person.
Yeah.
Cost-effective,
Yeah.
Cost benefit's a big thing to me. So I think
we're going to get our money's worth, right?
Exactly. Because let's be real, the taxpayers pay for it.
Right.
So I think if their money's spent appropriately and responsibly, then they'll see it. And the way that they see it is by taking care of things that they use every day, like the roads, the sidewalks.
Right.
We're getting sidewalks. We don't have that many to take care of, but we're getting there.
Well, I just was driving up, went over to LFK today to do a little video shoot, and I noticed that on Easterly and coming around, boy, they ground the road down, and we've been doing a lot of paving here while the weather has been nice, and we paved Royal Avenue and got a lot of projects done. It takes a long time to get these infrastructure type things started. It seems like they've been on the drawing board for a long time, but what people don't really understand too is we got to take care of what's underneath the road before we can get the road fixed.
Correct.
And because a lot of our infrastructure, is underground, and some of it's 100 years old, and so we got to really watch that and make sure we take care of that, because nothing worse. We always take jokes, right, about you put down a brand new road and we say, well, how soon is it going to be before they dig it up?
Right. Yeah. And I think that comes into play with our comprehensive plan, right? We've been working on that. It predates my time on council as far as how long it's been worked on. I've got to make some notes.
Sure.
However, it hasn't been done since 1998. Right, and I think that kind of goes into why the infrastructure needed to be so updated, because we're talking a long time.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to do that every 10 years.
It's supposed to, in a perfect world, it's supposed to be reevaluated every 5.
Well,
every 5, at least to see if you're on track.
We live in a perfect world.
We would like to think so. We definitely would like to think so. But in a perfect world, with things with bureaucracy, it kind of there's always red tape, but reevaluating to find out if it's on track and if we're doing the right things, or if there's things that we need to change and amend.
Right.
If there's money that we need to spend smarter, not more. Right. That's a big thing with me.
Right.
Spending smarter and not more.
Right. Well, a lot of times we have this plan, and that's to kind of give the council. And the county has one as well, but the kind of a long-term plan to look so that when this council's on and they decide to do something, the next council doesn't say poo-poo that idea and start something else after we get halfway through something. If we're going to do our projects, we kind of need to all be on the same plan as we move forward. So when councils change, I hope that's kind of what you're saying. You're going to kind of stick to the plan.
That's always the game plan, right? To stick to the plan. I think that's one thing people don't understand about a comprehensive plan and the individuals that have effect over it and influence over it. It can be a political thing,
Sure.
Just with anything with government. But I think the council that we have now and the future council, no matter how it's shaped, I think they want what's best for Front Royal, and the comprehensive plan is, just be like that. It's a collaborative, collaborative effort.
A lot of work goes into those. It's not something you just whip it out in a day.
Right. I mean, it's based off of the next 25 years.
Oh yeah,
right?
they
We're looking
years
way down the
working on
road.
those things. Yeah,
We're looking way down the road, and I think people are understanding Front Royal's growing. And that's, some people think that's a great thing. Some people don't like it so much.
they call that they want controlled growth or responsible growth.
Correct. And I think that phrase is a good phrase to use because, being a lifelong resident of here,
Sure.
I've seen it grow. And, when the Walmart came in, there were people like, oh, we're going to get a Walmart who were really, really happy.
Yeah.
And then you have people who are like, oh, we're getting a Walmart. The next thing you know, there's going to be a J.C. Penney's. We're going to turn into the city. And I think the steps we've taken have kind of proven that we can control the growth. We can't control if people want to live here,
right?
Because it's a great town. Let's be honest.
Right.
We can't control that. However, we can control what business, not necessarily control, but we can have a say and a voice, and so can the people, of what businesses come in. Because I think that's one thing that Front Royal is a bedroom community for, because there's we have nature, we have unique things that appeal to us. It's why we want to live here. However, there aren't a lot of things to do.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things in the comprehensive plan that's being looked at. I know people want another grocery store.
Yeah.
We want options, right?
Well, not everybody wants to drive across the bridge to go out to the corridor, and they we're so used to. I can drive to work in like a minute.
Right. Right. No, we're not used to long. We're not used to long commute times, and we're not DC where it takes 45 minutes to go 9 miles. We don't want to get there.
Well, when I told you I was going over to LFK, we went that way, and Mark and I were in the car and said, "Oh, we're not late." We wasn't expecting. I planned my 2 minutes to get there.
No, seriously, yeah. You're not planning to hit that extra red light, right?
No. I tell people when we moved here in the mid '70s, I think there was like 2 stoplights in the whole town. And you could drive to Winchester in like 20 minutes because there was no stoplights. Now there's like 22 of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think depending on where you're going in Winchester, there's a significant amount.
Yeah.
In the most random places too.
Yeah. Well, we got to do a little planning on that. Probably one of the things lately, like I said, you've been on the council for a few months.
Yes, sir.
And you've had a taste of some of the things that have happened. And if I kind of count you and Amber Morris like the 2 incumbents, so quote unquote, you know what I mean? Both of you have been on a very short amount of time, but the rest of the council is going to be 100% new, regardless of who wins. And that's going to, which in fact makes it, basically it's going to make the entire council really all new council with no history, so to speak, of what's going on. So it's going to be a tough, it's like the mayor will be herding cats, for a while there, maybe to get everybody get their footing. See where they're at.
There's always some growing pains, right, when anything changes.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of our responsibility, though, as council, is to be as professional as possible, get to know one another on a personal level, but especially professionally, understanding what their vision is for the town, and because we can say what we want as far as what our vision is, but how are we going to work together to make that happen, right? What are we willing to compromise on? How are we going to do what's best for the people while differing in opinion, right? And that's a big thing. So I think the council we have now, and I think, it's been proven me and Amber are willing to compromise on things. And
she's opinionated. Let's go off the record, right? That's what we won't. Amber, we're not going to talk about you.
She's
good.
But she's great to work with, honestly. I think being opinionated in a job like this, in a position like this, because I don't want to call it a job. It's not a job. We're public service. We want to do it. We're going to get to that, I'm sure. But she's great to work with. She's informed, and she's passionate. That's why she's opinionated.
She's very passionate, and again, it's good to ask these questions up front instead of waiting till you get to the last minute. And we've had members on councils in years past that they'd get to the final vote and they start asking questions.
Yeah.
Those are things you do ahead of time. You do that in work sessions. And you don't wait till you're voting on the resolution.
Right.
I don't quite understand that. You need to speak up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think the council we have now doesn't have a problem in speaking up.
Yeah,
right? I think the last public hearing that we had regarding the special use permit for that house on Chester Street, because we don't know what's wrong until we find out.
Exactly.
Right. With the parking issue, why we had to do the exemption and things of that nature. No, like I said, no policy's perfect,
Right.
but Amber and Latasha were quick on it, very quick. Why hasn't this been addressed before? Why haven't we thought about it sooner? Why didn't we plan for it sooner? And there's going to be things that you don't know about until it hits the agenda. But
yeah, in years past we worked with Mayor T. Walt when he was on the council, as Councilman T. Walt, about parking. And we have buildings have been here 30, 40, 50, 100 years, and they've got by with no parking or 2 spaces, and all of a sudden, they sell it, and then they can't sell it because I got to have 42 parking spaces,
Right.
Well, wait a minute, we don't have 2, that's all we have. And I think some of the ordinances have been changed, updated, and says basically, kind of summarizing it is, you got what you got, and we'll have to live with it, because you can't make more parking out of something that's just not there.
Right.
For a while there, for a couple of years, we were hindering sales and people moving in and getting businesses started, and that's not very business friendly. And
Right.
That's always a buzzword we kick out. So our business and our corporate entities is really
Right.
what pays the bills. Residential doesn't really generate enough revenue. You want that much.
they keep our taxes low.
Yeah, of course, I don't think the town collects it anymore, but the county collects it, like machinery and tools. And, we live off property taxes. And
Some of
fees.
that, yeah, some of that. We get some water and things of that nature from some businesses. But yeah, you talked on that, the business-friendly aspect, right? One of the reasons we are one of the lowest tax localities in Virginia is because we have businesses that pump in some revenue,
Sure.
that use our water, use sewage, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So we have to be business friendly in order to sustain the controlled growth we want,
Right,
right?
right.
In order to get things done, we have to have money, and to have money, you have to invite businesses in.
Sure,
And it's a two-way system.
Well, there's a couple hot topics that have been going on the last couple months. And you may or may not want to discuss it, or you can always say, "Well, we're under investigation and can't discuss it."
I don't believe I'm under investigation for anything.
But the two hot topics right now is data centers and the economic development. Do you have any comments you want to make on either one of those?
So as far as the data centers go, you just want to ask me my personal opinion on
personal opinion, and what do you think?
Okay. So my personal opinion on them is from an IT perspective. Everything's moving towards the cloud,
Sure.
and so I understand why companies need them and things of that nature. However, town like Front Royal, I don't see it. I don't see the the constituents wanting it, and my job isn't. My job can sometimes be helping citizens get out of the way of their what they're passionate about.
Right.
To help as a better whole. However, I think the last thing I personally think of when I think of Front Royal is a data center.
Yeah.
My biggest thing with that is if data centers want to come here, they have to be transparent with the people. This town is too small for the public not to know what's going on.
Yeah, because I think the big push is they want them by right,
Right.
versus by special
Right,
use.
they don't want to have to plead their case.
Right.
And
to show up, build a thing, and go away.
right, and I get it. It's fast growing. Like we were talking before it started. IT is a very fast growing
That's the
field. The
world.
need for data is forever growing, and it's not
Yeah.
going to stop. Intellectual property is data now, right?
Sure.
You don't necessarily have to worry about your card getting stolen, your debit card getting stolen
Yeah.
from your wallet anymore. Now, if it's online, it's up for grabs, so to
Right,
speak,
right.
unless you do your due diligence. But I'm sorry, I think I got off track there with the tangent.
Yeah.
But data centers, yeah, so they don't employ a lot of people, right? Will they bring in revenue? Sure. However, that's something the constituents have to decide if that's what they want to trade off of. Do they want to bring in more revenue, or do they want to keep their town, beautiful? And don't get me wrong, I've seen data centers that are gorgeous,
Sure.
that look very aesthetic, appealing to the eye.
Yeah. Most don't.
Right? And
Yeah.
I think the reason transparency is so big is because people want to know what they're going to look like.
Well, they've heard a few bad things about them too, like down in Loudoun
Brownouts
County.
and- yeah.
Well, that's another thing. We talk about electric cars and all the other thing in our power grid. A data center takes a lot of juice and a lot of water for cooling. They use the chillers and refrigeration types of things. So
Got to keep the servers cool.
we have, and we have only so much water you can draw out of the river. So we got to think about that. And we have a lot of water already pre-committed to some areas in town. So
Correct.
we got to. Those are things that you'll
We've
have to
had some
address.
electrical issues
Yeah,
this month, right?
then we're going to talk a lot about that, and you'll see these things as you spend that 2 and 3 and 4 years on council.
Yeah, and that comes down to why I want to be in the running, just so to speak. I applied to be appointed because I wanted not only to see what it was like to decide if I wanted to run for the general
Sure.
election, but I wanted to understand the inner workings of the town.
Yeah, you might not want to do it.
But I do want to do it. And most people, some people go into a job, they shadow a job, and they realize it's not what they want.
Yeah.
It's what I want. I want to help the people. I want to get their point across. I want to understand what they think about certain things, because we can make decisions all day, but we don't work for ourselves.
Right.
We work.
I think
for
that we got to remember that. That we're there.
Every government public servant should.
Well, you got thrown in there at the very, during that. You had some tough decisions to make, and we won't go in and talk about them. But I know that we've had to, our town manager and employees and other kind of situations and lawsuits that have all happened in the last 3 or 4 months, or finishing up lawsuits and things. So you got jumped right into the fire. I think hopefully it'll be better the next 6 months or next year.
Well, I think that tests the waters, right? I found out, when it can get is not necessarily as bad as it can, but
it's hard to make those decisions.
But when it can get as hard as it can get, how do you handle the pressure?
Yeah,
How do you think of, well, this is how I personally feel, or this is what the town
I could
needs?
tell. I watched you on the video on one of those things, and you were contemplating the decision you had to make.
Yeah.
I could tell you were thinking.
That was so just to put that in perspective, that was the first time I've ever had someone's job title in my hands.
Right.
That was I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think my head was in my hands
Yeah,
for maybe 25 seconds or more.
Seemed like an hour.
It felt like an hour. But things like that take contemplation. I can have all the facts in there that I want, but the reality of the situation is you can never truly remove your emotion from it.
Right.
So that was me saying, we got to be rational here. Can't think of it as a personal decision. Like, it's not your friend. It's not someone
What's
you know
best for
personally.
our community.
What's best for the community, and that's ultimately what it came down to.
Yeah.
So I think the 30 seconds that not necessarily because I was going to make that decision, right?
Right.
Rationally, I'm a rational person. I'm a logical person, especially when it comes to.
But when you had to open your mouth and utter the words, it's
right. No, exactly. It's totally different thinking about it.
Yeah.
But when you have to do it, it's a total different ballgame.
tested by fire. So.
And then we've had other situations go along, because of what happened with that. So, those situations really tested the fact if I wanted to do it again, and I said, yeah, absolutely.
Well, good. Well, you got a taste of almost the worst thing that could happen.
I'm sure there could be worse things that could happen.
Yeah.
But going through some difficult times early on kind of made me understand, how fast council can change. I've been on council for 5 months and we already have a new council member. Right.
Yeah.
So, and now the people before my time, now they have 2.
Yeah.
And they're about to have a 3rd after November 8th,
Yeah, right.
because I don't hold that seat after the special election.
Right.
So that's why, So
it'll be a whole lot of shuffling.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of shuffling.
And then when if mayor elect or hopefully elect Lori gets it, then her seat will be empty and we'll have another appointed. So we're really going to have a lot of shuffling.
It's going to be a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, a lot of moving.
But I think, like I said, that kind of holds true to the community. We're hungry for. I think the people here are hungry for fresh blood in those positions. I don't think. I'm a firm believer that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Right. That's a big thing with me. You can't go anywhere without change. That doesn't mean I don't think we should hold values that have helped us and kept front royal. It just means that we have to adapt to the modern world, and sometimes that means we have to let a business in here that hasn't been here before. Or, they're simple things. Yeah, but it's all about compromise, and I think with the new council coming in, I think we're going to have a lot of that, and I think it's gonna set some light on where we think the town's going to go.
How about that economic development? We have our own now for the town and one for the county, and they were at that teetering on what they want to do, and it appears that the council has kind of decided, and I think we're going to try to still squeak it along here to see how it's going to weigh out.
Yeah. I'm definitely for it. Because this is, I have a voice for the people to have influence over it. I think it's different when you're an outsider looking in to the whole situation. Because I'm not gonna lie, I came home from college and I was like, wait, like the FBI is here in Front Royal? Like what's going on?
What are they doing, right?
Yeah, like what's going on?
They
Like,
were
this is
camping
like,
out at the EDA, weren't
right,
they?
yeah. I mean, it's just, you read things in the paper and it's crazy. You don't think of something like that happening
Sure,
in Front Royal,
sure.
and the people that live here definitely don't think of something like
No,
that. They're born and raised here. They don't think of anything like that happening in Front Royal. So I understand why people are reluctant for it, because when they hear EDA, even in an acronym, right? If they
Sure.
see those three letters together, right after another, it's panic, and I can understand that. However, this isn't that EDA, right? This focuses on the town. It doesn't expand to the whole county. It's specifically focusing on the town. It has the town's interests at heart, not the county's, right? And that's a big thing, because if they have their own, then they should, I understand how we kind of had that, shared situation, but it didn't work for us, did it? So it didn't. I mean, it did for a little bit. I'm sure there were great things that came out of that.
If you look at the Warren County, I think they're taking the word Front Royal / Warren County EDA.
Yeah.
Most of the properties that they're still owned now for development are in the town limits. I mean, and so that's and we have very small amount of property. But there's other things the EDA can do other than just selling property and doing that. So I think it's all about creating this business-friendly atmosphere and making our government work better for existing businesses and our new businesses, and maybe even helping existing businesses to thrive, not just survive. I think
exactly, and that's a big thing. And I think the comprehensive plan touches on that. I mean, competition is healthy for all, but how can we help the businesses? What can we do? Not necessarily aesthetically, but what can we do as far as the infrastructure? How can we help them, thrive in a way that they haven't done before?
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of turnover growing up in Front Royal. Like, oh, well, wait, 6 months ago that was this business, or 3 months ago that was this business.
Sure.
Sometimes the clientele doesn't necessarily meet the business, but I think in Front Royal, with the amount of tourism and the amount of unique appeal that we have, a business can thrive here if it has the appropriate,
Well, I think we have, in a business point of view, a couple things that we have that over a lot of more rural towns. We have a UPS terminal right here, and that's something that will probably come before the council in their next term. What's going to happen to them? We don't want to lose them.
Right.
People don't realize the great benefit that have because we are in such a just-in-time society and business, and we have in our internet service. We finally have got attracted Shintel and Glow Fiber to come in and put their fiber.
That was a big one.
CenturyLink has got fiber. Then the Xfinity has come in with their high-speed cable. So it's a long time coming. I remember that that dial-up modem, and when that came to town, and with a 300 baud modem, as you well know, you can't do much with that.
Not exactly.
But we don't realize how much we use the internet. It's for everything. And we were over at the store the other day, I think at Rural King, and their internet was down. You couldn't buy anything unless you had cash.
Yeah, the terminal. Yeah, so that's a big thing, right? Like when the internet goes down, some businesses can't even use their phones because they use VoIP phones.
Right.
So it's straight over the internet protocol. They can't use it if the internet's down. It's almost like they go back to dial-up, right?
Well, they dig out those credit card machines, and
so it's the internet technology. Modernization, it's a big thing. I never thought Front Royal would have a fiber optic company.
Right.
As far as the high speed internet and everything goes, I think it's amazing, because now you have people who've lived in I don't know exactly what their service radius is, but I'm sure people who live up on High Knob, or they live up on Lakefront Royal, like their service.
Calling every day. Right. When are you coming up here?
Right, or but I'm sure their service has gotten better just because technology's evolved. Sure. But if we aren't friendly towards those businesses and trying to bring in more modern businesses, we're not going to help ourselves in the long run.
Your background in IT and the cybersecurity should be a benefit on those things going forward, because I think you're going to see more and more of it over the next few years. So I think
the biggest thing with cyber is integrity, right, and availability, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you want to keep your stuff safe, but you want to make sure it says what it's supposed to say, it does what it's supposed to do, and it's available when you need it.
Yeah,
right? That's
exactly.
kind of how it works.
Anything else you want to add before we cut this thing off?
No, I mean, other than I appreciate you having me. Election day is November 8th. You can vote on Saturday for the next 2 Saturdays.
Right.
Up there at the North River Precinct, I believe it is.
Yeah.
The Virginia Department of Health Building and Social Services. But no, I mean, other than
Just
that.
check that box, Zach Jackson, right?
Well, if if that's how you're feeling, that's what makes America
That's
great,
great.
right?
It is
We
great.
can disagree.
We got choice.
Well, we got choice, and we can disagree, but we can still like each
Sure,
other.
that's right.
That's one
We
of the
agree
biggest
to
things.
disagree. Is that what
And
that is?
I'm a firm believer in that. If you knew any of my friends, that's what they would tell you. He can get passionate, but if it's not going anywhere, he'll just agree to disagree. Because,
And move on, right?
well, yeah, because my personal relationship with people it's not
Well, we
worth.
gotta pick our battles.
It's not worth a simple disagreement, right?
Right.
That's how I feel about council, right?
That's
We
great.
can disagree all night, in the council chambers, but when we leave, if we're friends, we're friends.
Yeah. All right. Well, Zach, I really appreciate you coming in, talking to us, sharing some of your ideas and your passion with our community. And
I appreciate
we
the
want to
time.
remind people November 8th is the actual day to vote. If you'd like to cast your ballot in person, you can do that. It's November 8th. There's still early voting going on. Plus, they opened up a couple of Saturdays. So I think, like you said, the next 2 Saturdays. So check it out. Please vote.
It's the biggest thing. Even if you
Truthfully,
don't-
every vote does count.
Yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't matter if you vote for me or anybody that you see me running with. Just
get out there and vote.
get out there and vote. Have your say. Have your influence, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. My dad always taught me I can't complain if I don't do anything.
That's
about it.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Thanks again, Zach.
Absolutely. Thank you.